Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News Weekend. First Nation leaders in Northern Ontario have declared a state of emergency over the flow of illegal drugs and resulting deaths in their communities. The declaration comes following what APTN Nation says was a drug-related shooting incident that unfolded in Ganoogaming First Nation. Ganoogaming was placed under a shelter-in-place for 2 days as the OPP searched for 2 armed and dangerous males. That advisory was lifted on Thursday afternoon, and the OPP says 1 person is dead and another injured. Ganoogaming First Nation, roughly 300 kilometers northeast of Thunder Bay, has itself been under a state of emergency for 16 months due to an increase in violence and drug and alcohol-related crime in the community, which was overwhelming leadership and causing community members to fear for their safety. Chief Sherry Taylor reissued a call for action on that state of emergency following Wednesday's homicide in the community of roughly 200 people. In a statement, Taylor said it is absolutely tragic that the young life of one of our members has been taken and another one has been injured. The 2 outstanding armed and dangerous individuals continuing to be at large is a major concern, and we urge anyone with any information or know of their current whereabouts to report it to the OPP. Taylor had a message for her community members.
If you continue to harbor criminals and gangs, continue to sell the drugs to our kids, you will be banned from the community and you will have to leave.
The tragic incident comes as chiefs and others from 49 First Nations in Northern Ontario gathered in Thunder Bay for a conference on addressing gang infiltration, illegal drugs, and drug-related violence in APTN Nation territory. Grand Chief Alvin Fiddler and First Nations leadership on Thursday declared a state of emergency on illegal drugs and deaths.
And it's come to the point, in some cases, where our chiefs and councils feel they are losing control of their community because we have outsiders coming in from Winnipeg, from Ottawa, from Toronto, and elsewhere, taking over the communities by fear and intimidation.
APTN police are reporting an increase of more than 300% in cocaine and fentanyl seizures between 2023 and 2024. Fiddler called on Ontario and Canada to equip First Nations with the resources they need to take back control of their communities. The NAN Grand Chief called for an urgent meeting with government ministers. Mandy Galmasti, the Minister of Indigenous Services, posted on X on Thursday that she was heartbroken by the violence in Ganoogaming and says she stands with NAN leadership. On Thursday evening, OPP confirmed 2 males were in custody after a 2-day search for suspects considered armed and dangerous in connection with the homicide investigation. No charges have been announced. The Assembly of First Nations National Conservation Gathering wrapped up in Cape Breton Wednesday. Mi'kmaq land protectors were given a platform to speak about protecting Hunter's Mountain. Angel Moore reports.
At the Member 2 Trade and Convention Centre in the Member 2 First Nation, Unama'ki, Mi'kmaq for Cape Breton, First Nations from across the country gathered to discuss conservation and stewardship. Mi'kmaq land protectors Cynthia Paul, Roger Toney, and Duma Wilson spoke at the AFN's gathering. Toney invited the crowd to Hunter's Mountain.
It's not a protest. It's a gathering for us land protectors to protect our resources, and we want to keep welcoming everybody to come join us. Come eat, come have a tea or a coffee, and chat about it, and even come have a look for yourself to see the devastation that's happening in our abundance of resources.
Mi'kmaq land protectors have set up a checkpoint at Hunter's Mountain to take back stewardship and to save the forest from clear-cutting, despite a new provincial law that says it is illegal to block or impede access on forest roads. Terry Dorward is the Conservation Director for the West Coast Indigenous Protected and Conservation Areas. He visited Hunter's Mountain and says he supports the land protectors.
because the government of Nova Scotia cannot run roughshod on the Mi'kmaq rights and responsibilities to their land. They're trying to protect a way of life. You know, we're living in the 21st century, and this colonization and these aggressive tactics need to stop.
The land protectors say when treaty rights are violated, it affects all nations.
We're all treaty people, and we've signed this treaty as a whole. And to make it work, we have to work together as a whole, right? The treaties aren't being listened to.
As the gathering wraps up, the land protectors say they are prepared to face jail and/or fines to protect the mountain and will never leave Hunter's Mountain. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Member 2 First Nation, Unama'ki.
About 50 people gathered outside the Federal Court of Appeal in downtown Ottawa on Wednesday. It was to show their support for the Kabeowick First Nation in Quebec and its opposition to a proposed radioactive waste disposal site at Chalk River, about 180 kilometers northwest of the city. Fraser Needham has more.
And with Mother Earth comes our rivers.
Algonquin
comes
elder
our
Claudette
lake,
Commanda
comes
told
all
the crowd
sources of
Canadian
water.
Nuclear Laboratories, CNL, wants to build the site on the shores of the Ottawa River, and this is the last place it should be located.
That we all have a responsibility to protect the river, and there will be no nuclear waste on any of our waters or our land. And let's say that together. Water is life.
The Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission gave the green light to CNL to build the facility in 2024, but the Kabeowick First Nation took the decision to court and received 2 favorable rulings. In separate decisions, the court ruled CNL had not met its duty to consult and had violated the Species at Risk Act. CNL asked for a judicial review of both rulings, the first of which, on duty to consult, began on Wednesday in Ottawa. Kabeowick First Nation Chief Lance Heyman had this to say during a break from the hearing.
Inside our courthouse, our legal team is standing up for something simple but powerful, that laws must mean something and promises must be kept. Canada passed a law to implement the United Nations right on Indigenous peoples. Canada passed a Species at Risk Act to protect fragile life and ecosystems. Yet here we are, having to remind the government to follow its own laws. This isn't a court case, it's a test of values.
Both the NDP and Bloc Québécois are supporting Kabeowick and its opposition to the proposed site. NDP MP Leah Gazan said both CNL and government need to live up to the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, which is enshrined in law.
Time and time again, this government says one thing, it's doing another. I'm going to stand to uphold the rule of law, and that includes the right of Indigenous peoples as affirmed through the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples.
Bloc Québécois MP Sébastien Lemire added with so much opposition, CNL needs to find another location.
But I think we are on breaking points. I think the event didn't see is the show, and of course thanks to the First Nation to make this battle, particularly, but it's to the more than 140 municipality towns and was opposed to the project of Chalk River. So the reality now find another site.
The Federal Court of Appeal will hear the application for a judicial review on the violation of the Species at Risk Act on November 12th. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
An Anishinaabe woman is the latest judge to be sworn in Manitoba. That story and more after the break. Welcome back. With publicly funded schools in Alberta now closed, Hope Mission, a nonprofit, is doing what they can to help families until the teacher strike ends. APTN's Chris Stewart explains.
With the teacher strike across the province, workers and volunteers here at Hope Mission's main central hub are busy making sandwiches. Lots of sandwiches. Tuesday is the first day that Hope Mission starts delivering healthy lunches to Catholic schools across Edmonton. A sandwich, granola bar, a fruit and vegetable, and juice. Jared Jorstad is the Preventative Programs Director.
We are providing emergency school lunches for kids who would normally be receiving a lunch during the school day, but because obviously school's out, they are in need of these services because it's an emergency service. so the kids can go to these schools and receive a lunch.
And it takes a lot of teamwork to get the lunches prepared.
Every morning our team, we got some staff and some volunteers that will come in, and they will prepare the lunches starting around 8 a.m. Once the lunches are prepared, they go inside of a cargo van, and that cargo van will deliver to those schools before 11 a.m. And the lunches and the school support staff that are currently working right now will receive those lunches, and then as students come up to the doors, they will distribute those lunches.
And their other locations in Calgary and Red Deer are helping parents who need to work.
We're doing some day camps, so obviously with school being closed, they need a place to go so that parents can, who are working, two-parent households who are working 2 jobs, can go still to work, and we could care for their kids.
Primarily known for helping houseless people with meals and lodgings, women's and youth shelters. They need the generosity of people to continue what they have been doing since 1929.
We don't receive any government grants. It's all through just the generosity of individuals or companies that want to donate to us, so we rely 100% on people's generosity.
If you want to help, you can go to hopemission.com/donate. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
A member of Lake St. Martin First Nation in Manitoba has become the latest judge to be sworn in within the provincial court system. Judge Jerry Lee Ryle has been on the bench since May, but a ceremonial swearing in took place recently with her family, friends, and peers all in attendance. Here's part of her acceptance speech.
Bonjour na dinaway maganadak. Papate wizi magazine nagabi wanang episode na diginakaz. Makud dudem, bashkadang dunji.
I, Jerry Lee Ryle of the City of Winnipeg in the province of Manitoba, do solemnly swear in the presence of and while holding this eagle feather.
It was important for me that I opened my remarks in the language that should have been my first language, that I introduced myself in a way that I should have been born into instead of reclaiming later in life. This loss of language, culture, and ultimately identity are prominent features in the legacy of colonization. The prohibition on Indigenous cultural practices and ceremonies was in fact legislated by law. From 1884 until 1951, Section 149 of the Indian Act prohibited the practice of ceremonies. The healing practices that could have helped deal with the trauma of forced displacement and the residential school systems were rendered illegal. Due process was not available to Indigenous peoples under the Indian Act, as Section 141 prohibited the hiring of lawyers without permission of the Department of Indian Affairs. That section remained in effect until 1951. I highlight this to show the evolution of law, how law changes to reflect the values of society, and to show how far we have collectively come as a country. It wasn't that long ago that the only acceptable place for an Indigenous person to be in a courtroom was in the prisoner's box. It took the voices of brave leaders of Gitchadag. I am not the first Indigenous judge. The Honourable Murray Sinclair Bunn was Manitoba's first. I'm also not the first Indigenous female to hold this position. The Honourable Judge Redhead, who I'm now honoured to call a colleague and friend, became Manitoba's first Indigenous female judge when she was appointed in 2007 in Thompson. I am deeply aware that I walk in the footsteps of those who paved the way. I hope that in some small way my contribution helps light the path forward for those who come next. The core values of respect, love, courage, honesty, wisdom, humility, and truth are the foundation of a strong and just society. When these values are upheld, they create space for healing, unity, and meaningful reconciliation that benefits everyone. What I carry into this honorable position are these lived experiences, teachings, and values that have shaped me and that will continue to guide my path forward as I duly, faithfully, and to the best of my knowledge and ability, perform and fulfill the duties and requirements of the office of Judge of the Provincial Court of Manitoba.
Congrats. A new season of APTN Investigates airs on Saturday night. We'll tell you all about it when we come back. Welcome back. The revival of Indigenous midwifery practices is making a comeback across the country. In Quebec, on the Mohawk territory of Ganasatake, the first home birth in 50 years took place. This happened shortly before the official opening of their new multi-generational women's space. With more, here's Kim Sullivan.
So this is a rebozo, and it's a Mexican textile.
Dayutihene Nicholas and her colleague Patricia Gahanganolo Gabriel are birth keepers.
Red raspberry. It's a uterine tonic, so it's excellent for women.
Their role is to promote reproductive sovereignty, all while offering emotional, physical, and spiritual support to the women of the Mohawk community of Ganasatake.
It's really walking with women in a very deep way, and it's bringing all of our cultural, traditional teachings and our medicines and being very connected to community.
They also aspire to rekindle in women their connection to Mother Earth during childbirth, because that first stage of life is considered a sacred moment.
We have pictures from the first birth.
A few weeks ago, a healthy baby boy was born in this space, a first home birth in 50 years for the community.
It was really exciting. This one really hit different, that it was here in Ganasatake, where I grew up, and that I got to be a part of this huge moment.
Dayutihene gave birth in a hospital, and despite the 10 people present in the room, she felt alone.
It's over the bed because it's really good if you're pushing.
Becoming a birth keeper was one way to make sure that no other woman would ever feel the same way.
She was just so well supported and so well listened to, really heard and really understood, and made to feel that she was the center of what was happening, that she wasn't being told what to do, but we were asking her, where are you at? How are you feeling? What can we do for you?
Cultural revitalization is at the heart of the Ganasatake Health Center's mission.
This vision is in each and every one of us.
Executive Director Dayawan Nisa Rote Jeremy Tomlinson adds that it's culture at its widest form and cultural revitalization as a fundamental basis for lifestyles.
In Ganyageha, we say the word for culture is Zinyung Guarihota, which loosely translates to our ways. So our ways of doing all things, our ways of giving birth, our ways of raising children, our ways of educating ourselves, our ways of feeding ourselves, our ways of life.
It's with this in mind that the health center purchased the Zugwadade Haje farm, on which they've built the Digudadali Andale multi-generational space for women.
Social health, where do we start? It's really big, and that's a part of the vision of the Ganasatake Health Center. So we started with birth, and we looked at birth and how we can, get families healthy right from the start. And we said, wouldn't it be great if we had a birth space, and we made it happen.
The center offers services for women from all spectrums of life, from preconception to menopause.
Right now we offer moon teachings for the young girls, and then grade 5, 6, but through high school. We do ceremony for women for healing, and then also for postpartum. And we offer a space for women to give birth.
The layout of the room reflects a clear intention to prioritize comfort and culture, all within a natural and peaceful environment.
We're so well surrounded by nature and all that it has to offer. Mom went out and took a walk while she was in labor and just connected with the natural world around her. So it's not just this space, it's the entirety of where we are.
These birth keepers had quite the story about nature and the very first home birth.
She was in full-on labor, contracting. She was bent down, and the skunk came out, and he looked at her, and then he went on his way. And we were "Was!" We were telling him, go on, don't spray us now. But it was just it seemed like all of creation really was holding its breath, watching. This is a big, significant thing that's happening here.
By giving women a space where birth can be experienced in respect of traditions, the land, and their autonomy, this place becomes much more than just a delivery room.
Because when a baby's born, everybody's role is shifting. So how can we support that? So I just see everybody kind of coming together in a way that hasn't been done here for a long time. And even like within, you know, schools and the Elders Lodge, everything is so separate. So like this is a space where community comes back together.
Kim Sullivan, APTN National News, Mohawk Territory of Ganasatake.
APTN Investigates returns this week with an all-new season. In Just For My Sister, video journalist Tamara Pimentel uncovers shocking details surrounding the death of a young Casca woman in the 1960s. Anne Mary Dick was only 18 years old when she was killed in the small community of Upper Liard, Yukon. A man confessed to the crime. A trial was held, but he was ultimately found not guilty on a technicality. Now, more than 5 decades later, her family is still seeking answers and justice. Here's a preview.
When a family loses a loved one, their story doesn't end. It carries on through prayer and ceremony.
My sister's case is very heavy. Me and my family, we fell apart. We try to get support. We try to support each other.
Anne Mary Dick died over 60 years ago. In Upper Liard, Yukon, her story is a lost narrative. Mary Ann Dick was named after her late sister, and it's her life goal to bring the story of Anne Mary to light.
I worked on her case for so long, and I'll never come out of my head. I'll never come out of my heart. I'm so heartbroken the way she died. Justice failed her. Really failed her.
And you can catch all new episodes of APTN Investigates on Saturdays and Mondays at 6:30 Eastern Time. You can also find the episodes and much more over on our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy McGuitch, thanks for being with us. Have a great night.